Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and a doctoral student of psychology. Today, I want to talk about something specific. So, it's not going to fit every case. However, I want to talk about avoidant men in particular and anger and why they react to certain conversations. Now, some of y'all know I specialize in anger, and many avoidants who see me, like in therapy, they struggle with anger. So, this could be incredibly specific. It's like extremely based on my perspective. It's a bias, and I know that, but I think it is something that is informational. I want to mention that I noticed that fearful avoidant females tend to struggle with anger more than dismissive avoidant females. I've never worked with a dismissive avoidant female that struggled with intense anger. However, I have worked with some fearful avoidant females that also struggle with anger, but it usually comes from other aspects such as PTSD or a personality disorder. However, avoidant men, both dismissive and fearful, they'll struggle with anger even if they don't have much other aspects. They might have depression, anxiety, or other aspects, or a personality disorder, but it's not necessarily coming from all of those aspects, or particularly those aspects. It's coming from a combination of the way they present themselves. Whereas fearful avoidance, typically, if you, I guess, adjust some of those aspects or some of the symptoms they're having, the anger goes away. But for avoidant men, even if you're adjusting a lot of the issues, let's say substance use or something like that, they still struggle with anger. And so part of it is attached to their attachment issue and I guess their gender and how they perceive themselves in society based on that. So that's what we're talking about today. So I'm going to talk about their relationship with anger and how it shows up. As I'd mentioned, it's a little bit more common with dismissive avoidance, but it's much more common with men in general, okay? And so this is kind of what I notice when I'm working with couples. What I see is like some sort of pattern, okay? The avoidant male, he handles stress poorly a lot of times, okay? And he's bottling that up. For example, let's say construction on his house is taking longer than he thought. And they're married, so it's not like it's a pretty secure relationship to some extent, and they're married and the construction on their house is just taking longer than he thought, and also it's more money than he thought. So these are triggering a lot of things avoidants don't like, right? They don't like when, like, a lot of avoidants are impatient, especially men who struggle like this, and they also don't like things that take more money, right? Because they plan things, they're very meticulous about these things. So now these are all triggers and stress, right? And so they don't like this, and now they lash out on their wife. Just an example, right? And the relationship that was solid now suddenly becomes it in this moment, it becomes very negative, right? Because she has no clue. And of course, if she's a fearful, avoidant, or anxious, preoccupied, she's going to take it personal. So she thinks that she did something. Okay, so that's the first thing I noticed. They take stress in a way that it looks personal. Like he might literally say, "You're being too needy," when he doesn't actually feel like that. Like, I have had literal patients where they say, "Oh, I say things when I'm mad all the time that I don't mean. And I don't like that I do that. And I also don't want her to take it personally because I really don't mean that when I say that." And he will say things that makes her, because she has her own attachment issues, feel like it's actually a problem. So now she's thinking, so that's the next thing that starts happening. She takes it personally and she spirals. She either reacts or she defends herself, and she feels like he's being mean or he's being too much. Fearful avoidance, she might shut down, she might cry, she might run into the bedroom and shut the door. And now he's like, "Oh my God, she's so dramatic. Like, I was just saying, like, she's needy. She should have just taken it well." And he's not realizing how, like, overwhelming his anger is becoming. And now she's spiraling, she's hurt, and now the next step is her reaction makes him feel like a horrible husband. And he feels criticized, and he might react even more poorly because of the way she acted, leading to resentment on both ends. So they may withdraw. So the avoidant male might withdraw or avoid the partner because, one, he doesn't want to make her cry and he feels guilty. Two, he doesn't want to admit that he feels guilty. And three, he's afraid that he's going to hear her criticize him more. Or sometimes avoidant men do this, is he's going to continuously pursue and it escalates the conversation. So let's say, for example, his wife, she got really sad, she went into the bedroom and she cried. Okay, he goes up and follows her and pursues. This is just an example, right? He pursues and says, like, "You're criticizing me. I don't want you to cry. I feel like such a bad husband. Why do I even do this? Like, why are we even putting up with this? Why do we fight so much?" And so now he's feeling the discussion is becoming more and more heavy when all it started was a construction in their bathroom. Like, and now it's suddenly bleeding throughout their whole relationship, right? And now the relationship is on like the last legs, even though it wasn't like yesterday, right? And so this is why this can be really tricky, because it escalates incredibly quickly. Because the start is he actually doesn't even know why he's stressed. He doesn't know, and that's why that's important to process in therapy or in other avenues, why that he's actually just stressed about the bathroom and the money that's being spent and the time that's being spent, and that he feels like it's disrespectful that it took so long. Has nothing to do with his wife at all, but suddenly it's all on her, right? Because in his mind, which is not healthy at all, he thinks that this is a safe outlet to some extent, which is both good and bad, unfortunately, right? And so how do you resolve such a complex or frustrating situation? There's a couple ways to do it. First of all, the most important one is, if you notice each other is in a bad mood, be more mindful of what you guys say, but also be more mindful of what you're feeling, okay? And so that's kind of separate from how we're going to resolve this, but it's really very important. It's the first step among anything to do with anger. Understanding how you feel and being able to label it correctly, and also not taking your anger moments to heart so badly. Because usually what happens is a lot of the men who do this and now they're feeling better, they kind of don't even know why they acted like that, and now they feel better, and that's not good. And they might overly apologize, and a lot of them do want to really get better once they see what they've done. If they've made her sad or made her cry and they feel guilty, a lot of times this is enough for a lot of these men or avoidants in general to want to change, or they do change. But unfortunately, it took his wife to run upstairs and cry for him to do that. And so that's not a healthy way to do these things. So most of the time, it's really important, if you are a person who struggles with anger or your partner struggles with anger, it's really important to recognize, don't make all those heavy emotions completely like demolish the relationship, right? It's just like a moment that once the stress is gone, it's going to go away. And managing stress is important. Now, what can you guys do if you're the partner of this particular person? Ask before bringing up an issue. Is this a good time to talk? And if you're the avoidant, if it's not, say that. Be honest about that. Don't feel bad, and don't feel like then you're not a good husband or girlfriend. If some of you are women who struggle with anger as well, that's all right. Just mention it's not a good time to talk, but it's not because of you. It's because I'm stressed about the construction in our bathroom, right? Say what it is so that you can understand, so that they don't feel rejected. The next one is, if you notice that your partner is lashing out and you feel like it's not proportionate, and you have to trust yourself. You have to trust yourself. It's not proportionate. Keep your responses neutral and find a good time to move away from the conversation. Because some avoidance, like I said, if you escalate it, they'll pursue you, which isn't healthy at all. This is the issue with the anger, right? Anger management, which really does need a lot of, like, you need a specialist for this typically, because these behaviors are not okay. But I'm just giving an example. We're sharing this video. It's only for informational purposes. I'm not saying to stay in relationships like this without professional help, or at least trying to navigate it and trying to see, like, have more confidence about seeing these positive changes. You want to see positive changes. You can't stay in this without changes. It's not healthy. But you want to move away from that conversation, because if you don't, if you also escalate it, even if you don't mean to, they're going to get emotionally charged, and sometimes they'll pursue, or they'll shut down, or it'll be they'll pursue and then they'll shut down, and either way you're not going to get what you're looking for. And so have some neutral responses, and at some point move away and bring up the conversation again when you see that your significant other is more or less angry. And also, that's the next point, communicate the issue when they're less emotionally charged. Include mentioning why you think that they had anger, what was a trigger. And so an example could be, I think you struggle with anger and I really want to talk about it because I feel like what happened yesterday was a lot. I tried my best and I know you tried your best as well, but I think what was really bothering you was the construction in our bathroom, right? And you want to mention that, of course, if you have a lot of rapport, you can say it the way I did. If you don't have as much rapport, you can mention it in a more softer way. And the next one is assess their desire to improve and take accountability. Now, a lot of times not all, but a lot of the couples that I see that have similar patterns to this, the husband or wife, but it's more common with the husband, at least from my practice, they are sorry. And they take accountability pretty much right after they calm down. It's better if they take accountability during, and that's what we aim for, right? And also for that not to happen again, right? But you want to start seeing at least accountability after it, and then soon enough you want to see them take accountability during. And so, for example, if the wife went upstairs and she started crying, that should be his signal, I messed up. I'm sorry. Not pursuing after her and saying, I felt criticized, whatever, or being charged about that. That should not be happening, right? Accountability after is good, but also during. He should run up or give her time and then apologize, right? If he wants to follow her, he can say, I'm sorry, I'll give you space. That's on me. Taking accountability is really important. And the last one is you need to know when to break up. And that's for you to decide. It'll be different for every person, but this situation is not healthy if it stays this way. And I'm emphasizing that because I've seen so many things with these couples and I'm still young. Like I will probably see so much more. But even still, it's really important to understand these relationships can be really tricky. And so you have to evaluate if you see change and if they want to change. And so I don't know how to summarize this because there's a lot of complexities, but we're just going to summarize, I guess, how to resolve it. Ask before bringing it up. Notice when they're lashing out and trust yourself and set some boundaries emotionally. Communicate when they're less stressed about what you think actually happened. Assess if they want to actually change and then reflect if you need to stay or if you need to break up. I hope this video is helpful to somebody. Please like, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.